Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will talk about how to tackle the drone threat. Now, from the assassination attempt on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in August last year to attack on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia and dropping of arms and ammunitions in Punjab, there is one common element in all these security scares, that is the use of drones. Now, drones are making a steady progress in both military and civil applications, and now these versatile multi-role platforms have become a cause of concern for the security agencies around the globe. In the first annual press conference, as the new Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal RKS Bhadauria also referred to this threat, saying steps have been taken to tackle the challenge of airspace violation by small drones. So how are security agencies world over trying to find a solution to the threat posed by drones? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce the guests, beginning with Retired Major General Ravi Arora, the Chief Editor of Indian Military Review. We also have with us Retired Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, the Additional Director General of Center for Air Power Studies. And we have with us Mr. Ajay, Banerjee, the Defense Correspondent from the Tribune. So let's begin. And in the beginning, let's try and break it down for our viewers and put it in context as well. General Arora, I'll begin with you to try and explain as to how drones have evolved over the years, and they become, or rather all set to become, an essential part for both civil and military purposes.
Well, unmanned flight as such is as old, almost as old as manned flight. Few years after manned flight was undertaken in the early 20th century, someone developed unmanned flight, but it was not used as a weaponized platform. Then over the years, in the Second World War, you could say some of the rockets were used as unmanned weapons, but they lacked guidance, they lacked communication, they lacked navigation, they lacked terminal guidance. So they were just like, free fall bombs, although some of them rocket assisted. But the use of drones for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, as well as a weapon for carrying missiles and guided bombs took place, really speaking, after the 9/11 attack, when the Americans started using armed drones to target terrorists in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So since then, although the Americans had, exclusive use of this technology, controlling drone flights right from America and directing them against targets in Afghanistan, after that it has proliferated. This technology has proliferated in the sense that China today is exporting en masse these what we call unmanned combat aircraft, especially to the Middle East. And amongst the top 10 armed drones of the world, the Chinese have developed two of them, the CH-5 Rainbow and the Wing Loong 2. Similarly, the Russians, the Israelis, the Turks, and many other countries have got world-class armed drones, which are in the top 10 list.
Okay.
But the use of smaller drones, call them drones, call them remotely piloted aircraft, call them unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned aerial systems, whatever you may, popularly now called drones, they have now been used this year, and this year has been a turning point when the Yemeni Houthi rebels used drones. They claimed to have used them, although the Americans and the Saudis believe that Iran was behind them, that they used cruise missiles as well as armed drones to target the Saudi Arabia's oil facilities at two locations on the 14th of September. And then from 6th of September to 16th of September, we had at least 10 incidents of Pakistanis using drones to send AK-47s, pistols, grenades, satellite phones, mobile phones, ammunition, etc., to the Khalistanis on our side of the border, using them as delivery vehicles. So this has now become a fact. It's a new revolution in military affairs. We have got to not only live with it, we have to counter it, and we have to also use it as a weapon of war.
Okay.
And last but not the least, the threat to airlines at airfields and airports around the world is now an existential threat. It has happened in India. I can give you more figures because I have learned them from the CISF.
Well,
it's a big threat to airlines at airports today.
Well, yes, definitely. And there have been incidents worldwide where flights have been cancelled because, unmanned aerial vehicles were spotted or drones were spotted in the vicinity. Let me bring in AVM Bahadur here. This is a versatile platform, what we call drone, and it has a lot of uses as a multi-role platform. So how do you look at the way this particular platform has evolved over the years and the kind of uses now we're talking about the misuse as well?
One has to be clear. When you're talking of unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles especially, the first use of an armed unmanned vehicle was a balloon in the 1800s, in 1840, when it was used against Venice, where the hot air balloon, there was some bombs laid and it was just left, hoping that the wind would carry it. Now what happened was half of them came back and struck who had launched them. So the history of unmanned use of unmanned vehicles is that old. It's not just beginning of the century, last century. It's 18th century, 19th century. So now the point at issue is, from there, we've talked of the aerial vehicles. Let's not forget the word drone encompasses underwater vehicles also. So there are underwater drones too, which are a big threat to shipping, but that possibly requires another program. So sticking to the air part, so that has developed. The armed drones actually were the V1s, the V2 bombs used in World War II, as also when you consider the fact that the real usage of drones as we now see it happened in the Bekaa Valley Israeli-Syrian offensive, when the Israelis used the drones to illuminate the radars of the other side and got their frequencies and attacked them.
Okay.
So that is where the drones were first used and really caught the imagination of people who are interested in aviation, of the use of how drones can be used in various ways. So one was to get the radars painting, the other one was to get the frequency, and that's where the ratio was massive, some 80:1 in that particular war. From there, yes, it came into our bedrooms and drawing rooms during the Gulf War, much before 9/11 in 1991, and that's where then it started off. The problem is that the proliferation of drones, it's actually, I call it an insane proliferation. You and I can just go on the Amazon or eBay and buy a drone. And if our thinking is a little warped, inimical to anybody, we can use that as a weapon. We still hear, and it's happened in the last 2-3 decades too, of balloons coming across from Pakistan side, and they say there is pamphlets. There was something that came, we don't know, we just found the balloon. But the point is that unmanned vehicle has created a problem for you possibly. And hence, the issue that comes up is, one, is it a threat? Absolutely it's a threat. Second, what do we do about it? The biggest problem is to detect it in time.
Okay.
How to detect it is the other issue. It is not as big as an aircraft. It can be a very small thing. And hence the radars and electronic means have their limitations. You can start looking at aural means, that is the sound that it produces. But the point is that the battery powered smaller ones don't make too much of a noise. Do you put people all over your vital areas? You can't do that. You can't put a person on every inch of the border. So intelligence has to come in here. You got to have intelligence on the other side of what the other side is planning to do.
Okay.
So it's not just state actors or non-state actors across the border, but also within the police forces and the intelligence within the country, because this is a very potent weapon in the hands of terrorists who want to create mayhem within the country or just create a nuisance value. So the point is, one is the physical threat, the other one is the psychological threat. A drone aa gaya, kahan se aa gaya, from where it will come, we don't know. That is a social problem we need to tackle.
Okay, so there are, very different aspects on this particular issue, and as you pointed out, the challenges are twofold. One is detection, and then comes the neutralization part as well. But let me bring in Ajay here on the, both the gentlemen have clearly elaborated on the evolution and on the history part as well. But the way technology has, been developed over the years, we should not be surprised as to, we have these kind of weapons coming in, one of them being drone out here. And we've already spoken a number of times about future wars wherein unmanned aerial vehicles and drones will play a very important part.
See, Vishal, first we are in this program because a series of small drones have come across the border and dropped weapons into Indian Punjab. They are believed to have come in from Pakistan. These small drones have raised two little points, in my opinion. First, I'll recall the balloon incident which AVM Bahadur mentioned. We had to launch a Sukhoi to bring down that balloon. So imagine your formidable strike fighter has been airborne to bring down a balloon. Okay, now what do you do? At the moment, the Indian Air Force is testing out a system by which drones can be detected. Our radars and other things are at the moment programmed to pick out things which are of a particular size. Not very small size, but of a particular size. Probably an aircraft, a bigger armed drone which is much bigger, which is a wingspan of around 20-30 feet, or an aircraft or a helicopter. It has been programmed for that. A small drone like the one which came across from Pakistan into Indian Punjab were no more than 6 feet or 5 feet wide and very small with little radar signature. So it is imprudent to think that the existing systems can pick out those drones and bring them down. And okay, with what will you bring it down? Will you fire a S-400? Will you fire an Akash? Will you fire a Barak? What will you do? These are the questions which in everybody's mind in the security setup at the moment. You
detection and neutralization.
First detection, the second is neutralization. What will you fire? These huge missiles can't be fired to bring down a small drone over a populated area. And the drone is flying only at 400 or 500 feet. It has just crossed the fence and come in and dropped a thing. Even if it drops, it is a very low cost game for the adversary to play with India. As AVM Bahadur pointed out, the psychological impact of it. Now, how do you do it? How do you bring it down? That is the question. The Air Force is at the moment testing out a system by which it can be detected and also be brought down, because a newer set of weapons will be needed to bring it down. You can't fire the huge missiles to bring it down. It is a small thing. You can't kill a fly with a sword. You need a small fly swatter, that kind of thing. Vishal.
Okay. So the threat is small, but it is abundant. It can be utilized, as you said. It is a low-cost kind of weapon. I can see one here, which General Arora has brought in. And when we talk about the small drones, General Arora, how do we, if you can explain it to us, how do we consider that as a threat, starting from this size onwards and up to what size we say?
Yeah, why I brought this was, this is a very famous brand of a drone sold worldwide in very large numbers. It's just about 1 kilo. It's easy to hide, easy to transport, easy to activate. Within 5 minutes, you can have it going. But more important is look at the specifications of this drone. 1 second. Look at the specifications of 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos drone with 31 minutes flying time, 18 kilometers one-way range, and 8 kilometers video streaming link, controllable from your smartphone. And on the other end is the Chinese Winglong 2. This is capable of flying 72 kilometers per hour up to 6 kilometers altitude. And the Winglong 2 has satellite communications. So there is no limit of range as far as communicating or passing data or videos go. It has a speed of 370 kilometers per hour, 20 hours of endurance. It is armed with missiles and laser guided bombs. So both are threatening. Both are potent threat. This
Okay.
one, 18 kilometers range, I said it can be used as a kamikaze suicide attack drone with modifications. It can be used. The threat is not only of it as a weapon.
So it's the smallest kind of drone which can be used as a weapon,
yes,
if modified.
Yes, even gathering intelligence, carrying out surveillance, carrying out reconnaissance is a threat. It's taking back information, passing it on to the enemy. And the other one, the armed drone of the wing loom kind. I'm talking about wing loom because that is the one exported in large numbers by the Chinese to friendly countries, which become a threat to other countries. They are in the same league as Reaper and the Global Hawk of the Americans. And what was used, they call it the UAV-X, the Iranian drone used in the attack in Saudi Arabia. So these have become big threats. Now, as my colleagues have pointed out, the challenge is detect, identify and defeat. This itself is a challenge. These small drones, as Banerjee was saying, you can't deploy an AWACS to look for these small drones. These small drones flying low, at low speed, sometimes impossible to detect on radar. You have, of course, other means. You have to use observation, you have to use optical devices, electro-optical devices, active radars, passive radars, acoustics, as Bahadur said, many other means. And then you have to identify. Look, last year alone at Delhi airport, the CISF detected 67 of such objects, out of which about 23 they firmly identified as drones.
Okay.
Others were likely to have been kites or balloons or the Chinese candles which are lit up on some occasions and sent up in the air. They were not certain. So detection itself is a big problem.
Okay.
What to talk about threat? Threat means from suicide attack to bombs to conveying or using it as a logistics platform for dropping lethal weapons, as happened in Punjab recently. Identifying again is a major problem, and then defeating, of course. You can have a soft kill. All of them. This one is dependent on direct communication. It has two frequencies on which the controller is communicating with it. You can jam it. You can break the link. You can do a frequency hijack. You take control of the drone and make it land somewhere, or you can have cyber solutions against larger drones. You can have hard kill, which means actually identifying and using weapons to kill it. But again, as Banerjee said, it has to be cost effective. You can't be using a 1 crore missile against a threat which is worth very little.
Small drone costing maybe thousands of rupees only.
But the most effective weapons which are now coming up are microwave weapons, directed energy weapons, some of them very effective at airfields. But you remember, some of these technologies which have come in, they prevent airlines also from operating. So the airport has to be closed until those threats are identified and destroyed.
Okay.
So it's causing a lot of nuisance, a lot of problems. It has to be done. Counter drone operations have to be done, otherwise they are quite dangerous to our own operations. And I come back to the point, right from the smaller 1 kilo drones to 5-ton drones, they are a threat which have to be defeated.
Okay, and that corresponds to what AVM Bahadur was pointing out. Small drones being present in abundance, and what you said, prevalence of these easily available on platforms, on online platforms as well. But then that brings us to the question which all of you have raised so far, and General Arora also pointed out certain aspects of it, as to how to first detect, as you said, and then neutralization or defeating it, this particular threat, doing away with this threat is something which is very important. So from an air warrior's perspective, AVM Bahadur, what are the options which we have right now, and what is it that we need to build upon?
First, of course, as I said, incidentally, just for your viewers, lest a drone becomes a villain. It's not so, unless you want to make it a villain. So the important part is that you take the first proactive step, which is knowing who the bad guy is. On its own, the drone is can be used for very good things. Okay, so intelligence, as I spoke earlier, is very, very vital, because once a small vehicle gets airborne, you do not know which direction it's going to take, and since it is difficult to detect, it is difficult to intercept it. So that is one. Secondly, they won't go, if they are coming on a dropping mission, then obviously they will try and look for a place which is not close to an Air Force station or Army station or inhabitation. But it requires somebody to go and pick that up, whatever it has dropped. Once again, it gets back to intelligence on our side. Who is going to receive it? So it's got to be a close coordination between the defense forces and the police forces who are manning the border, plus the internal security mechanism. If the drone is coming to drop, say, an AK-47 or arms and ammunition, it's coming to drop for some people within your own country. So let's intercept them here, get our intelligence going, and hence, if he is caught, there is no point of that fellow coming in, the drone coming in. That's, let me tell you, possibly an easier way out, a long-term solution. But well, yes, suppose we have failed in all this, and now the aircraft, the drone comes in. Then there are 2-3 things. One is the radar. Now there are, in fact, now bird detection radars. I mean, you can detect birds, okay, and they are deploying them at airfields. So the technology is but the problem that happens is the range and obviously the height. The radar works on the line of sight principle. So if he comes in very low, even the best of radars can't pick up. So one is the electronic means. Secondly, as I told you, is the acoustic means. Third is the visual means. And in case of, for example, when we have the function at the Red Fort, the Prime Minister goes and the whole lot of VIPs, every rooftop, if not more, has 1 or 2 people sitting with binocs, visually spotting. You can do this with a relationship with certain new guns which have come, which are electronic. They have radars, they are focused on an incoming threat to either burn the electronics inside, or, as was pointed out earlier, to disrupt any communication, or to actually just bring it down. There are facilities now that you have your own drone up, flying in the air. And when this detects something or is given a command, it actually fires a net. So your drone fires a net and captures this and brings it down with the help of a parachute. So there are these new, but this is finally happening close to where that other chap is wanting to come in. So we must remember this. So these are all things which actions which you take once you have failed in knowing who's doing the bad act.
So we are improving, step by step, as the threat is also revealing itself. The countermeasures are also being talked about, and the technology is being developed. Ajay, final words from you on where do you see, this entire game with drones being misused, I would say here, because as AVM Bahadur pointed out, drone in itself is not an evil creature. It depends upon how the user who is using it is trying to go ahead and make use of it.
See, the adversary has used a low-cost option to increase the cost on us. Why I say this is because you already have a ground-based sensor and a ground-based BSF sitting on post across the border with Pakistan. Then you have the Air Force radars, then you have the aerostat radars, you have AWACS, which are high-cost items which fly up there, look there up. You already have UAVs, the big ones which you have got from Israel and making on your own. Now this is another new cost added to our security architecture, because you have to have smaller radars, and the boundary with Pakistan runs into hundreds of kilometers. A small little drone within a night or a day can come in any time. You will have to have constant surveillance. It increases the cost on us by a very low cost threat posed by the neighbor. As AVM Bahadur has pointed out, we need intelligence on the other side to tackle it because this cost can be increased manifold by sending 10 small drones and create a panic in this country, because as the mind works, people will be reporting this: a drone comes, drops an AK-47. Looks very small, one AK-47, what is the big deal? But it is creating a social impact and a psychological impact on the population on this side, and also on the people who manage the security architecture. So this has increased the cost for us, Vishal.
Okay, increase the cost and it becomes a part of the PSYOPs as well. So there it is, all the details of what exactly is a drone threat and what are we doing, and security agencies world over trying to tackle this particular challenge. Now, drones are a versatile platform which can be used in various ways, specifically for the benefit of humanity as well in sectors like health and business as well in sectors like e-commerce. But if it is made a weaponized platform, then it can be a huge big security threat. And that is where our security agencies come in and trying to figure out as to what exactly needs to be done. We'll keep you updated on all developments on this aspect and come back next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.